All right, hello friends. Welcome back to Hobby Vomit. It is me, Matt, and I am here with the August reading Ralph Up, in which I talk about all the books that I finished in August, and then books that I have started in August but have not finished yet. And yeah, I'm just gonna talk about them. So let's get right into it. So I didn't finish that many books, but I did start quite a few. I started some chonkers. That's why I didn't get them finished. And I'm on like a weird cycle where I start books in the middle of one month and finish them in the middle of the next month. So not like a first to 31st kind of thing. But yeah, let's just get going. So I am gonna hold up my e-reader because I don't have the physical book for two of these books. So the first book is on here, and that is just Full Throttle by Joe Hill. This is a collection of short stories by Joe Hill, who, if you don't know, is Stephen King's son. And I had read one previous novel by him called Nosferatu, and I really enjoyed it. And I had heard that Joe Hill's short fiction. Actually, I had read Lock and Key as well, which is great, fantastic. A long time ago. I'd like to reread that at some point, but I'd heard that his short fiction was very good, and so I was like, yeah, let's try it out. Perfect for like kind of in bed reading. Just knock out a short story here and there over the course of a month or a month and a half. And I gotta say, really enjoyed his short fiction. I've only read the one collection, but I might like Joe Hill's short fiction more than Stephen's. Uh, it's right on the fence. I think Stephen King's highs are probably a little bit higher, but I think Joe Hill's a little more consistent with his short fiction. Now, granted, there are only like 10 or 12 stories in here compared to the like 35 or 40 of Stephen King's I've read. So that may change with more collections, but I'm very much looking forward to reading more short fiction by Joe Hill. So I did score this a 4.25 out of 5. And then just as far as like the highs and lows, there's two short stories he wrote with Stephen King. One is the first story in the collection called Throttle, and that was one of my favorites. I thought they worked really well together. Be very curious to just see how they wrote together, because it doesn't feel like it was like Stephen King butting in. So I'd be very curious. But some of my favorites were Fawn, which is kind of feels like it. Actually, it was, because this is one thing I loved about this collection is at the very end, Joe Hill went through each story and talked about each one, about like his inspirations and things like that. And so Fawn was very much inspired by the Ray Bradbury short story that I'm blanking on, but with like the butterfly and they step off the path where they're like hunting dinos, but more of like a fairy tale take on it. Very, very good. Late Returns was really good. Kind of just like an emotional time travel story. All I Care About You, he dips into sci-fi. There's one called The Devil on the Staircase, which was written in a very particular way, but it didn't go through on the Kindle. Still enjoyed it. Mums was great, and You Are Released was the final story in the collection, and very relevant to today, and very scary, and it might be my favorite in the collection. Very, very well written. And yeah, there are a couple duds in here. I thought Twittering from the Circus of the Dead, while it was interesting, it's basically a girl. They go to this circus that's not what it seems, but the whole thing is written in tweets, which it's like, I appreciate the shot you take in here, but it did not land for me. That was probably the worst in the bunch, actually. It was. I did rate them all. That was my least favorite. I also thought Dark Carousel and Wolverton Station were both fine, but even the fine ones were like enjoyable for sure. So that's Full Throttle by Joe Hill, 4.25 out of 5. I cannot wait to read another short story collection of his. All right, moving on. For Family Book Club in August, we did Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. This is my second time reading this. I read this in college, but this is my first time. I kind of forgot. I remember the big things about it, but I kind of had forgotten the little moments. And yeah, I really liked this. I gave this, I think, a 4 out of 5. I think Kurt Vonnegut has a very, very unique writing style. He's very funny. It's very, very readable. It doesn't. It almost feels ahead of its time. Like I think an author. This feels very modern, but very funny and I don't know. It was just a nice escape almost from because this handles pretty heavy themes with PTSD and war but it's written almost like a sci-fi novel with time jumping and a non-linear story. There's aliens. It's all over the place, but it's kind of nice because it tickled that like sci-fi or fantasy element inside me that kept me captivated throughout. I think everyone should try this. It's not for everyone. But I think if you're interested, I've heard that's not Kurt Vonnegut's best, which is exciting because I still thought it was very good. So I am eager to try more Kurt Vonnegut. But Slaughterhouse 5 was very, very good. Super quick read. 4 out of 5 for me. All right. Moving on to so those are the books I finished. So like I said, no, I'm sorry. There's another book I finished. This was a freaking chonker. Insomnia by Stephen King. As you can see, it's a big boy. So Insomnia is a really interesting book. I picked it up. I'm on my Stephen King journey, and I'm going to try and read every Stephen King there is. And I'm trying to balance the like really the best of the best, and then if I read like one of his hits, then I'll try and read one of his not as good books. That way I'm not knocking out all his best up front, but honestly even his not good books are good. And Insomnia is a very polarizing book. It's either your favorite Stephen King book or it's one of your least favorite Stephen King books. And so my brother, who got me into Stephen King, did not particularly like this book, and that made me very curious to see where I would land. It was kind of like the perfect timing of where I was just like, let me just I finished The Dark Tower, knew there's Dark Tower connections. I wanted to read a bigger Stephen King book and see what like his not as good works, how they landed for me. And honestly, really, really liked Insomnia. I think I gave it also a 4 out of 5. Let's see. Check my review here. I think I gave it a 4. Yeah, a 4 out of 5. And I was not expecting to. It's very, very slow. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of didn't. It fit the theme with like an older protagonist, which I really love. Ralph. I mean, very, very memorable. Will be probably one of my favorite Stephen King characters forever. I would be surprised if it didn't. And yeah, I don't know. Something about this whole. I mean, you can look at it. It's probably 100 pages too long or so, but it kind of works. I think Stephen King's superpower is that he can write meandering nothingness in a super, super captivating way. And I do think once this picks, I think it starts really strong. There's 3 parts. It starts really, really strong, I thought. Even though, like, in a slower way, slow burn. Part 2, I thought, was maybe the weakest. And then part 3, it's pretty much just nonstop to the end. And very, very, very emotional ending that it just worked for me on a lot of levels. I think leading up to the ending, I was between a 3.5 and a 4. The ending really sold me into a 4. So whoever says Stephen King can't write endings, I'm still waiting. I'm like 35 books deep. I'm waiting for the one where it's just like, that was horrendous. But Insomnia is not that one. I don't think this is for everyone. I don't think if you've never read Stephen King, this should not be your first Stephen King. If you don't like the meandering side of King, you won't like this. But if you're okay with a slow burn with really, really solid character work, this is your boy. All right. That is Insomnia. So those are the 3 books I finished in August. Now, I started quite a few more. So let's talk about the books I started. So going back to the e-reader, I just needed something in bed. I'm in the middle of, as you'll see, quite a few fantasy books, and I wanted something just grounded. I didn't need to be... I don't really like reading fantasy on an e-reader because I'm someone that loves to be in the map section, in the glossary, and it just takes too long on here. They're slower machines, so where you're like, you gotta press a button, then you gotta go to your bookmarks, then you gotta pull it up, and it loads, then you gotta close it, then you gotta go back to where you were. Where like in a book, I'm just like, boom, look at the map, done, and so it's a matter of seconds, but it adds up for me to where I'm just not as enjoying it as much. And I read my Kindle in bed to where like I get sleepy and fall asleep, And I just feel like with fantasy, I want to pay attention more. So, with all that being said, I started The Night Boat by Robert McCammon. I've only read one McCammon. Absolutely loved it. And wanted to read another one. Now I kind of wanted to start on the earlier side of McCammon to see how he improves. This is not one of his best reviewed books. I think his earliest three. It's one of the first 3 books he wrote, and it's one of the bottom 3 I think in rating. And it's kind of like this. So far, it's this man who basically uncovers this submarine. He's down, lives on an island, is down diving, and uncovers something, and a big submarine floats up to the surface. And the question is, it's like, how was this? It's unmanned, way old, from like World War II, and it's just like, what was it doing down there? How was it stuck down there, and how can it float now? It doesn't make any sense. And there's some I think some supernatural elements are coming. So far, not just some character work with around town. And honestly, the character work is great. Writing's great. It's just, I am finding myself, I'm ready for it to get going a little bit. And, I'm only like 5 or 6 chapters in. So I think it will pick up here pretty soon. But I don't know. Ghost Boat it's not doing it for me just yet. We'll see. We'll see how I land when I finish this. It might be a while before I finish it because I'm not like super excited to get back to it. All right, the other book that's going to take us a while to finish is Sharp Ends by Joe Abercrombie. This is really just what Bree and I are reading whenever we want to break from whatever else we're reading. We're just doing a story at a time. It's a collection of short stories set in the First Law universe that you are supposed to read, apparently, before or in between the standalones and the Age of Madness. So we just finished the standalones not too long ago, and we want to eventually get to Age of Madness because we both love Joe Abercrombie. And so, I think we're 2 stories in. So far, they're both good, though. I mean, Joe Abercrombie's writing is just top tier. I wouldn't say they're almost just like snippets of moments to where there's nothing like. I feel like in both of them, I've been like, oh, cool. I know who that is or where that is, but there's no like. It's not really like a self-contained story for the most part. To where I don't know if I'll ever. Again, only 2 out of like. Or maybe 3 out of 10 or something. But so far, none of them have been like, wow, I'm going to really think about that ever again. So I can see why this isn't rated very well. I don't know if short fiction is Joe's thing. But again, it's like the prose is there. I think Joe Abercrombie writes really well. So interested to see. This will probably take us another month or 2 just as we're slowly working our way through it. Okay. Then I got 3 big boys that I've started. So if you've seen this on the channel, Ian and I are doing a Malazan read-through. This is Memories of Ice, Book 3. We finished up Deadhouse Gates in July. And so, we are starting Memories of Ice for our read-along. And if you see here, I'm about just a little under halfway through as of today, which is the 6th of September. So we did post our first video for part 1 on the channel. So we will probably be done with this the beginning of October-ish. So it'll probably take me the rest of September. But man, I mean, what more can I say? I love Malazan. This is supposed to be, Guardians of the Moon. A lot of people are like, it's not the best. It's, it's the worst is actually what people say. Ian and I both really, really enjoyed it. And then people are like, Deadhouse Gates. That's the one where it really sinks its claws into you. And yep. It was one of the best books I've ever read. And then they're like, oh, wait. Memories of Ice is a lot of people's favorite. Halfway through, I can see why. It's the easiest onboarding. It's nice to see characters I recognize, and the story is very intriguing, and I'm loving it. I mean, like, I think my reviews and interest level of Malazan is going to get boring because I think they're all just going to be like, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Steven Erickson's writing is just, it is seriously next level. It's very, very good. All right. I'm also reading, can't see it here. Let's see if I can open it up. Here we go. Got my little cover on. The Will of the Many. The booktube darling right now. So, doing a buddy read with my brother's girlfriend, Kirsty. I know the second book is coming out, and everyone is losing their minds. Nobody has anything bad to say about this book, and so I wanted to read it. And I just finished part 2, so I got about a third left. We got one part left. I finished part 2 today. Gotta say, it's pretty damn near perfect so far. I got no real complaints. Like, I actually have no complaints. I'm loving it. Actually, okay, if I had to nitpick it, I'm not feeling super attached to Vis, but like I don't mind. I think he's well written. It makes sense why he's guarded. So it's not bothering me at all. If you don't know what Will and Many is, it's kind of like an academia book. It takes place in a world where people seed their will down or up or whatever to someone of a higher level than them. And so that's kind of like, the more important you are, the more people you have seeding their will to you, which is essentially like a magic system. So don't really know the specifics of it or anything, but it's kind of like the world we're living in. Our main character is infiltrating an academy, basically, but it's super good. It's doing a lot of things. I wouldn't say I'm the most excited by academia books. I've not read that many, but I just, I think my idea of them is like, you start the book, there's an inciting incident, and then they quickly go to the academy. They spend the time at the academy, and something happens at the end. But this is kind of really going against a lot of things that I thought were going to happen. The author's done the opposite, and I really like it. It just kept me on my toes. The writing's very simple, but very effective. Character work is mostly pretty good. Again, Vis, our main character, I'm not feeling very attached to him, but it makes sense. A lot of the characters that he's surrounding Vis with, I think, are really just intriguing. And the world building is awesome. The mystery is awesome. I cannot wait to figure out what happens at the end. And I know it's kind of become a weird thing on some people think that he's too good at things, Vis. I don't get it. My guy is failing at everything he tries. Like, he is constantly failing. So I don't really know where that complaint comes from, because I kept waiting for that. But yeah, he's a very flawed character, and it shows in almost everything he does. So yeah, very excited to finish this. I'll probably be finishing this in the next couple weeks. And then lastly, as for the Book Street Boys book club, doing Dragon Mage by M.L. Spencer. So we didn't finish this. We're supposed to do this in a month, in the month of August, but like, it's a freaking huge book that everyone voted for that no one read. So it was really just me and I think a couple other people, and we didn't really chat about it too much. They blasted through it, and it's just, I'm reading with Bree. We're doing our breeding for it. And I'm feeling a little conflicted on this book. So this book is also broken into 4 parts. This is a Dragon Rider fantasy coming of age with a sprinkle of academia in there. I think part 1 was very good. Like, I was hooked. I think the character work was very great. Non-typical main characters, and just some really, really interesting, cool ideas set up in this. Part 2, also really, really interesting. Just kept my attention. And then we hit part 3. In part 3, I don't want to say it was like bad, but like, it was kind of bad. We were very happy to get through it. We're started part 4, and part 4 is getting better. But here's my problem with this book. I think there are M.L. Spencer presents some really interesting ideas and then immediately walks them back. And it's just super frustrating as a reader, because the walkbacks make them so much less interesting. So I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's a villain in this book that is presented in the beginning that has ideas and is doing bad things for the sake of good. And that's for the sake of good, what they think is good. And that's what makes a compelling villain, is they're doing things because they think it's right. Think of Thanos or something. And then the author just walks that back almost immediately. It's just like, no, they're just a power-hungry person that just sucks. And it's just like, oh, well, that's way less interesting. I'm way less interested now, because this was a villain I was almost, it's like you don't root for them, but like, I can't wait to see them again. I see how they interact with our heroes, because they think they're doing good. Instead, now he's just like a bad guy because power, and I want power, and him, mustache twirling. So that kind of, I don't know. It just, I'm way less interested now. And there's just the character, that character. I don't know. It just, I'm bored with that character now because it's just very vanilla. Another problem that I had is that we have two main characters, and in the beginning, they get separated. There's a separation. And then, which is very interesting. This is maybe mild spoiler, so if you're worried about it, it's not really, but if you are worried about it, then tune out for 25 seconds. They're separated, and then they're immediately brought back together, which is frustrating because the separation, they're on different sides, different areas, and it means I'm very interested to be on both of those areas. And I could see, like, by the end of the book, they finally, one of them is having to work for the wrong side, but having to because they don't have another choice. And again, they think maybe they're kind of doing the right thing. And the author says, nah, 50 pages later, let's just get them back together. And it's just like, what? I was like, all the interesting things you're presenting, you're just walking back and throwing them out, and it's just frustrating. Then we got to part 3. Part 3 was the academia part. And, like, it's so bad. It was hard to read. It was boring. We spent like 80 pages forging a sword, and and then, like, I get fantasy has like swords and like, but I've read like Malazan. There are some badass swords, and Steven Erikson can present them in like 3 sentences. We spent like 80 pages on a sword, and then they get like the lamest names in history, and there's like wars going on, but no one's worried or talking about it at all. It's just very weird. I don't know. It just feels like this was written at different points in time, and there's a significant drop off in quality. So we're super close. We got about 120 pages left. I was really excited to read this and finish it. It's better, part 4, but same thing. I'm just not. There's a lot of like drama and poorly written drama, in my opinion. Within one chapter, like 8 characters fell to their knees, reached up to the sky, and screamed no because something like they got a paper cut or something. It's just like it's almost like comical how over dramatic this book has become. So I don't know. It just started really, really strong and has tanked pretty significantly for me. I'm thinking it's probably going to land at like a 3.5. I really, really enjoyed the first 400 pages, but this book does not need to be over 800 pages. It has not earned it. I can't imagine the last 100 pages will change my mind. I think we probably could have cut out like 3/4 of part 3, and the book would have been better for it. But that's my rant. Again, there's a lot to like about this book. This is really, my first real Dragon Rider fantasy, and it's really good. I love the dragons. I love the main characters for the most part. I liked it more when I liked the villain as well. But I think the main character is a really interesting main character. There's a magic system in it that is mostly interesting, but it is also used a little bit as like, I won't get to that. That's spoilers. But interesting magic system. Pretty solid writing. Kind of reminds me of Brandon Sanderson with more trust, which I really appreciate because it doesn't feel like M.L. Spencer is like stopping to explain the magic every 2 seconds, and I really appreciate that. But I do feel like it needed to be trimmed up. So this will probably be a 3.5 unless something crazy good happens, which, who knows? I've heard the ending is good. I think there's supposed to be a sequel. I don't know. But yes, that is it, I think. That's my August reading Ralph up. Books. What books did I like? Books. All right. Now you know. And I'll see you on the next one. See ya.